Hey everybody, Adam Savage in my cave with some new shop infrastructure tour. With a new shop infrastructure tour. You have no idea how significant the change that has just happened in this shop really is, and I am dying to walk you through it. But some prehistory first. For the last 13 years, I have been working in this shop, mostly at a bench sitting right here. This has been my primary work interface. For the most part, everything I've done has happened on this bench, except for cabinet building, which is ridiculous. I tend to build my cabinets on the table saw, which is stupid, because this is a perfect cabinet matrix bench. This is what it was built for. But suffice to say, I have enjoyed the luxury of a shop in which I am the only one who uses it, which means that things don't get lost unless I lose them. I don't have to worry about a hammer that someone else didn't return. And that's been great. And the fact that I build one thing at a time has meant, to the largest degree, that working at this bench has not been an inhibition. And yet, when people visit the cave, they're often surprised by how small this working area is, because the amount of area I work in here is only about 450 square feet. It's about 15 by 30. And like I've said, for most of my years here, that's not been a problem. But in the last year and a half, 2 years, I have felt the encroaching smallness of this space, and I've been feeling like I needed to expand. I thought for a while about moving the cave, and then I thought better of that. I live 2 blocks from here, give or take, and that is a luxury that I am jealously holding on to. A 3-minute commute is a thing of magnificent beauty. But more than that, I also realized that there was space for me to expand in this shop. When I first moved here in 2010, it was my wife's idea specifically to make part of the shop a display space. And I loved the approach to that. I loved that idea. She knows how much I love telling stories about the things, and having them out and extant is fantastic. I came up with the idea of using Billy bookcases, of lighting them, of putting white backs on them so they became like museum display. And I set up 14 of them here in the middle of this shop, filled them with 10,000 artifacts. And like I said, over the last year, I've been thinking, maybe I don't need that display space. Maybe I want to move that display space somewhere else. Maybe I should have a museum somewhere. That's a long-term thought, but the idea was that's where I could expand. And I was slowly wrapping my head around expanding into the display area when, earlier this year, I got word from Sean House that the old Industrial Light and Magic model shop building on Kerner Boulevard in San Rafael, California was finally going away and was going to be converted into medical offices. These are buildings that George bought way back in the 70s when he first moved up to Marin, and ILM used to occupy all the buildings on both sides of Kerner Boulevard in the specific area of San Rafael, and they were down to the last one. I don't even think ILM owned this building anymore. But it was still being inhabited by some OG modelers, and it was still being used as a model shop for commercial jobs and film jobs, and it's gone. As part of the winding down of this OG building, there were parties. We went up and shot for several days, interviews with Ben Burt and Gene Bolte and some other, Lauren Peterson, some wonderful old timers who gave perspective into what that building meant and what it was like to work there. And all that equipment got boxed up and auctioned off. Every friend I have in the Bay Area procured some bit of ILM history in these auctions. And I was sitting in Uptown Models with Sean House, and I was looking at this 22-foot long wall of model making racks. And the construction of the models happens in styrene, and it happens in tubing, and it happens in acrylic, and it happens in brass, and it happens in aluminum. Those are the primary building materials of a movie model shop. And I'm standing there in Uptown Models, and I'm looking at this wall of all of these materials, and I'm thinking, are these going to get broken up and carved away? You can't sell any of these things. They're too... Who's going to buy a 500-pound rack with $100 worth of brass in it? And I just said to Sean, I'll keep it together. Like, I'm offering to take these racks and to keep them extant, keep them stocked and keep them available. Available, I'm not even sure what available means. I mean, all of my old ILM colleagues can come here and go shopping anytime they want. That's mostly what I mean by available. I don't think that's something that happens a lot or will happen a lot, but they're also too important of an artifact to let go. So I said that to Sean. And then a month later, Sean calls me up and says, I need you to pick these racks up within a few days before Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving. Because he had accepted my offer instantly. I just didn't quite realize it. So I rented a truck and went up there, and Joey, who's shooting right now, met me up there, and we humped a couple of tons of crap into a 16-foot cube van, drove it down here. It was non-trivial. These things are heavy, they're exhausting. And then all of this rackage came into my already full display space and working shop and crippled this place for about 3 weeks. You could barely move. I actually got mildly depressed. Like that liminal space, like moving is really hard for me. Moving house, moving apartment. I do not like the liminal space. I like to have landed somewhere. And whenever I have to spend a few weeks in a liminal space, it's difficult for me emotionally. And so I was having that moment. But here's the thing. When I said I could take the racks, I knew that I could fit them in here. I just didn't know exactly how, but I knew that they would work. But I hadn't planned to expand into that area for months. I was kicking that mental can down the road until Sean accepted my offer, and then, well, it's time to just deal with it. So my shop assistant Orlando and my assistant Veronica and a couple other people and I spent a week packing up the entire display area. So let me just describe to you for a second what the display area was. It was 14 Billy bookcases with 6 shelves each, housing lightsabers, Legos, astronauts, space stuff, everything imaginable. Now, this is a map I have in my head. How do you pack all this stuff up to be accessed later? I kept the mental map. We took a photo of every single shelf, and each shelf went into a single legal-sized file box, carefully packed with paper and packing materials. And then the picture of that shelf went on that box, and it was numbered in the shelves, A through M, with shelves 1 through 6 in each one. And they are now sitting in a temporary storage space in the orientation they were here in the cave. So everything I could ever need out of any of those display cases, I can go to that storage space and get that thing immediately. It's stunning. Once we moved all that stuff out, we started building the shop, but it wasn't something that you could do like that. You had to kind of be taking down Billy bookcases and chronicling them, which we did for 2 whole days, at the same time as you're also building the shop. And I think I've given enough of a preamble so that Joey can actually swing camera left, and you can see just how much more space I have in this part of the shop. And, well, there's a lot of things going on here. There used to be a nut and bolt cabinet here. This drill press used to live over there. But drill presses, he belonged nearer to the mill than he was. And also it's on wheels, so it was easy to move over here. The other thing that's missing here is this workbench, which is, I say workbench in air quotes because it was mostly a horizontal surface covered with crap. It was a storage shelf. But it had to live here because there was no other realistic place for it to live. And it sort of covered this. This rack was over there. That's not important. But in the reorganization of the display space, I obtained tons more room over here. Let's go see what it looks like over here, because this is... These are active goosebumps that I have from taking in this space with you here right now. I can't tell you how happy this space makes me. Let me give you a little tour of the racks and of how it's laid out. So the real reorg starts about here. These were already here. These were on a shelf over there. All of these drawers are airplane food containers from decommissioned airplane food carts. These I liberated from a parking lot near the airport back in the early 90s, but we don't have to talk about that phase of my life. They got moved over here, so now expendables, tape, dyes, fabric, foam brushes, rubber bands, all of these expendables are now easily retrievable. And here come the first of the ILM racks. These two big blues weigh about 400 or 500 pounds apiece. They're made of particle board and covered entirely in melamine. They're like magnificent works of art for rackage. And they have been storing ILM stuff for decades. We've got your I-beams and your plastic up here. We got your brass down here. We got more stuff. And lots of the allocations of these shelves may change over the coming years. Dave Fogler gave me the great idea of taking everything out of the top of this shelf, but just having model kits as a kind of homage to the ILM loft of model kits, and I'm totally doing that. These two big blues were both the last thing to come over from Uptown and the heaviest. They really weigh 400 or 500 pounds apiece, and we took a lot of stuff out of them. We didn't take everything out of them, so they had to be wrapped in plastic wrap. It was a whole thing. They were sitting here. They were, like I said, they were the last thing, so they sat here and here, and there was no room to move. I had this little tiny pathway through those racks over here and these racks over here, and you could kind of get over here. And then the philosophical drop that I got from doing a live stream where I realized this room is the hardware store. This room is the hardware store. The second I had that thought, I realized these live on either side of the bathroom door. I don't know why that was so clear, but like, it's why I love a framing rubric. I think it's hilarious that my bathroom door is now at the end of a corridor. You can hear the sound difference. I do plan, by the way, to put a really nicely laid out tap chart right here for common tap sizes and decimal equivalents. I'm going to put some other art here. Joe Johnston, director of all your favorite movies and designer of Boba Fett and a million other things, started as the ultimate model-making triple threat. They could draw anything, direct movies, and also make all the models. Joe Johnston signed the back of one of these. We can't remember which one, but his signature's on the back. I was looking. These racks aren't 1970s old, but I was looking at these racks over the shoulders of Lauren Peterson and Steve Gawley and Joe Johnston when I was 11 and 12 years old. There are pieces in these racks that were in those magazine articles that young me read and thought, I want to do that as a job. That's part of the story that these carry and why I wanted to keep them with their brethren. And so let's continue on. I'm not sure if Millipede's going to stay in here. We're still deciding. These are my old brass racks and lengthy material stuff. We got to actually sort a whole bunch of the weirder stuff I had in here into the big blues. And, oh yeah, here, I can move this. There were two of these, and I only brought one over. This 8-foot-tall monstrosity is actually super useful. And a lot of the allocation of this may eventually change, but it's fantastic for having this kind of specific lengths of material. Here we have all the clear stuff. I want to say clear shit. Here we have all the clear stuff. Again, you can't have too many sizes and layouts of clear. Oh, I totally forgot when we're talking about tubing. I'm so sorry. If you turn and we talk about these things, this stuff, this gray plastic, not this orange plastic, this gray plastic. This is Plastruct model making styrene. This is styrene, which means it glues easily to model kit parts and to evergreen styrene, this kind of stuff. You've seen this in every hardware store in the world. It glues beautifully with this. And this is how we did all the circles and columns at ILM, was the varying lengths and widths and diameters of this stuff. I have the, oh no, it went here. I have the heavy clear tubing up top, but just this, oh my God, I can't even tell you how much this makes my hands itch to make spaceships. When they were working on a picture, they would order a bazillion of something and then have to sort it later. I know, these kind of belong over there. And all of this is a work in progress. All right, we'll put that right there. These, you have no idea. These are, again, Plastruct architectural modeling materials. Here's what they look like when you buy them at a store that sells this kind of stuff. but wait, which one is this? This is a E400. There it goes. Yes, there it is. This is what you might recognize. That particular shallow dome is represented across the entire film industry. There are buildings in Tatooine that have these as roofs. The tops of the 2 tanks on the back of the Alien environmental suit designed by Mobius and built by John Mollo's team for the movie Alien uses a pair of these. These are so ubiquitous in film, and here's every size ever, plus little discs, little rings, little elbows. I didn't know this, but when you are designing the architecture of an oil refinery, you are designing how the pipes actually route. And when you do that, you need systems like these colors that Plastrux sells so people know what's carrying oxygen, what's carrying benzene, what's carrying toluene, etc. In fact, that leads to this craziness, which is all of these colors of pipe for architectural modeling. There's a lot of polyurea off-gassing out of here, and I tell you, I can smell it. Orlando was like, I think something pooped in there. And I'm like, nope, that's just the plastic. Volatile organic compounds, I believe. Oh, look at this little staircase. This was where we would go shopping to build stuff. And now it is the hardware store for my cave. Lastly, there's these 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, almost 20 of these cabinets. Again, filled with all sorts of tiny little architectural goodness. I have yet to crawl through all of these. It has literally been less than 5 days since we finished this build. Eventually, of course, one of each of the pieces that sits in here will get glued to the front of this so that you can see what goes in every container. Wait, is that the right one? The question is, did you put it back in the right? Yes, I did. There we go. There's still a lot to do. Before we get to my part of the hardware store, I wanted to say this is no joke that this club chair is here. This is one of the places I go to relax when I hit some problem I can't solve, or I just feel like I need to veg for a little bit, or frankly, when I have a text to send, I'll sit down here in my chair. This is like a early 20th century. It's got these flat spots here that are literally specifically for your drink. I was in a thrift store with my wife that is not more than about 800 feet from where we're sitting right now. And I said to her, look at this club chair. It's like my platonic ideal of a club chair. I just wanted you to see it. It's a great example. And she said, you know that commerce means you could exchange money for that and take it home. And I was like, I literally hadn't occurred to me. I had that home like an hour later, and it's been one of my favorite chairs ever since. Okay, on to my hardware store. All of the Sortimo cabinets came over and are now in one location where they were formerly in 4 separate locations. And they are probably the very first thing I'm tackling in terms of a big infrastructure change. That'll be a future video. All the paints came in from 3 locations into one. 11 of these containers, each one holding dozens and dozens of bottles of paint. I am the kind of painter who doesn't know what I want. I have to see what's available to me to know how to proceed. So each of these paint racks has been designed so I can see all of the colors at once, depending on the medium I'm working in. And again, that is a really important feature for my working process. And I love these containers, but as you can see, I built them at several different spots. So they're of all different sizes and utility. And hopefully I'm going to make a rack that holds them all really nicely. Oh, yes! This is something you've never seen on a workbench in this shop. This is a lovely 12-inch metal brake, which is for bending metal at right and other angles. And this is a little metal shear for shearing metal, shearing plate metal, aluminum, steel, brass, what have you. These are really critical tools, and I actually use them all the time, but they have been living on the floor for the entire 13 years they've been here. This isn't their final resting space. As you can see, I've just placed it here, but this will be solidly mounted to the wall so that I can come over here and do sheet metal work when I need to, rather than having to get these out. Oh, I forgot one feature that I meant to show you of these model racks. So These racks were built by Nelson Hall. Nelson Hall is not the tallest guy at ILM, and in order for Nelson to see what was in these upper racks and to see, oh, I need some of these hemispheres. Are there any in there? Well, Nelson put mirrors up here so that he and the other shorter model makers could actually see if there was stuff in the drawers by looking up in the mirrors. This stuff all needs a bit of work. These are still serving me quite well. These cases have been serving me quite well, full of some of my heavier and weirder shaped things. Oh yeah, that's also gonna move. There's so many categories. Right, I was at the paints, I was at the metal breaks. The shop lab oven is great here, and I want it out on the floor. It's something that I use way more frequently than I thought I would. Again, this might not be its final container, or it might not be its final platform, but this case specifically, with its fold-up sides, was for sale at a garage sale in 1992. And I was there with my friend Mark, and the guy said, I said, oh, are you selling this cabinet? Because I really like this cabinet. And he said, I don't know. Are you an artist? And I said, yeah. And he said, because I love this case, and I love this table, and I want it to go to an artist. And I have had it ever since, and I have loved it ever since. It's full of some paperwork right now. And again, like I said, it might not end up being the final resting place for the lab oven, but it's nice to see this piece out and about again. It's been sitting way back part of a display. Very nicely, my safety cabinet has come out from the corner where it should be, and we have safety for breath, for eyes, for hands, and for ears. It's a long time coming. This has literally been one of the hardest to reach cabinets in the shop, which tells you something. And perhaps my favorite part about this room right now is that I was able to bring over my old Shenhua 12 by 36 lathe and back it against my 15 by 40 lathe. This actually was M7's lathe. Carrie, Tori, and Grant used this for the whole run of Mythbusters. It ended up going down to Frank Ippolito's shop where he and his team built a stand for it. And that was the only thing I wanted for loaning this to them for about 10 years. It might have even been longer than 10 years. At any rate, Frank moved shop. He sent this back up north. I picked it up in January, and it's been sitting in storage waiting for a home here. And again, it's been part of the amorphous mix of how this space might net out. I can't stress enough that I really was kicking the organizational can of this part of the shop way down the road. I was thinking of it like 6 months, a year and a half hence. But the second Sean called me and was like, you can come get these racks now, I was like, oh, I guess that plan is happening right freaking now. This is the bench that formerly lived over in the other part of the cave, the one with my flat files that I made in it, housing all of these wonderful, useful tools. Flat files are such a vital part of shop. I'm actually thinking about building another flat file set because of how well this has turned out. And also, this is truly now a floating workbench. I can actually use it for some projects and be able, this is a current project. I'm going to replicate the old French kilogram, Le Grand Quai. Let's see, almost last, but certainly not least, one of my favorite bits of shop infrastructure ever is the nut and bolt sorter I made. This houses over 240, I think it's 244, wait a second. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That's 144. Wait. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 144 plus another 24. 48, 58, 68. 168 separate sorters. It took me forever just to find the sorting drawers that were this thin. This has remained one of the most effective organizational strategies I've ever built, especially because it's on wheels. Ooh, the foam brick fell from up there. That's literally why it's there. Okay, I'm gonna put that in there. Oh wait, no, it's button head. There we go. And lastly, the newest sorter for all my stainless hardware that I got at a garage sale recently. This, oh, and my gauge pins. This is my gauge pin cabinet. And again, this also may change a little bit. This might shift slightly. I'm not positive. But again, a shop is nothing but a process. It is not a completed item. It is a thing in motion. Sometimes it's moving faster. Sometimes it's moving slower. Very recently, it was moving at a breakneck speed. And now we have this amount of room. And I have to tell you, as I look through all the vantage points that I now have from this space, after 13 years of just a couple over there, I'm really moved. I'm emotionally moved. I feel like I've grown up a little bit. I feel like my process has grown up a little bit. I feel like actually, like my process grew up a while ago, and I have grown up enough to match it and serve it. That's what I feel like is happening. That my process was like, hey, dude, you're gonna need to expand. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get to that. And it's like, we're really gonna need some more room. And I'm like, yeah, no, we'll get some big project. We'll get to that, I promise. And I was really planning on not dealing with it for a while. I am so grateful that at the moment the opportunity came to offer to keep these together, that I was able to offer that and to execute it. Because these are magnificent objects, these racks that came from the original Uptown models. They belong in a museum. They belong somewhere where someone is telling their story. Because the story of the amount of ingenuity and love and passion that went through those rooms at Industrial Light and Magic. As those buildings were shutting down, there were a couple of parties and a lot of talking amongst a lot of the old timers. And again, I'm not an old timer, and I was only there for 6 years, but it really did change my life from the age of 10 on. I've spent my whole life sort of chasing the beautiful ingenuity that you can see in the movies like Star Wars and Raiders. And that is born out of those rooms of clever people building beautiful stuff using racks like this. And, you know, I build stuff and I tell stories about stuff. And I'm so delighted to have more room to build stuff and more stories to tell about it. That's a tour. I'm sure there are a ton of questions. Go ahead and ask them in the comments if you have specific questions or specific ideas. I'd love to read them. There'll be other videos. There's going to be just 2024 is going to be the year of shop infrastructure builds, man. There's going to be a bunch of franchise stuff, but it's a lot of shop infrastructure. Thank you guys for joining me. I've been so excited to share this with you. And like Joey, who's shooting right now, he got to see it today for the first time. And the sound he made is like, oh, I've been dying to hear that sound. He's like, whoa! I hope you've gotten a tiny taste of that. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next time.